Good morning. I'm so happy to be here with you. I haven't seen some of you for a while, and some of you I don't know. And so again, my name is Reverend Curtis Cesarado, and I've been luckily available to be of service here. And I'd like to start this morning, hopefully with a little bit of laughter. Let's start out with a few jokes about showing up. So, why did the computer show up at work late? Because it had a hard drive. Okay, why did the cop show up at the baseball game? Yep, because he had heard that someone was stealing bases. And did you hear about the guy who took the luggage, who took the airline to court? Yep, he lost that case. Last one. So Joe asked me on one of our first dates to go to the gym. Joe showed up at the gym. I knew it was going to work out. I knew I was going to work out. All right. I got to work on that joke a little bit. So I am truly happy that you're here, hearing this talk. And one of the questions is, why are you here? Why do you think you're here? Okay? Yeah. Some of you are here, Linda, Marla, and Chris, because I asked you to. Others might be here to hear the talk, learn. Others might be here to also be with this community, this great community. And probably the main reason you're here is a mixture of all of these, isn't it? A mixture. I think, though, that the true reason all of us come to this spiritual community and other spiritual communities to hear talks is to learn how to be the best version of ourselves, to learn and unfold that spark of what I call the spark of divine in each of us. That is why we are here, to be that divine being in this human form. And I know a person who did just exactly that. I wished I could say it was me, but I don't always show up my most divine self, as probably my husband can tell you. But I do know a person who did, and that was Jesus the Christ. Jesus. Now, it's interesting. Who was Jesus? You know, depending on different historians and researchers, Jesus was many, many things. To some, he was a political rebel. To others, he was a miracle worker. To his family, sometimes those stories tell us that he was almost an outcast to his family. But one thing that I do know that was absolutely true. Jesus was someone that served and loved others. And oftentimes, those others were the marginalized. Now, we often spend time looking at Jesus and his divinity, the Christ self of him, the resurrection. I just want to spend a moment, though, looking at Jesus at his divinity, not his divinity, his humanness, the human part of him. Most historians account for his birth to be in Nazareth, and they often say he probably came from a very poor family. His father was Joseph was probably a carpenter. We all know that Jesus was not Caucasian and blue-eyed, yet I grew up with a picture of that on my wall. And it did bring me a lot of comfort because I could relate to it. But in reality, Jesus was a Middle Eastern man, a person who practiced all the Jewish traditions. I want to show you some renditions of Jesus from different sources. So when they take the bone structure of Middle Eastern men at that time, here is one rendition of Jesus, okay? Now, why am I showing this? Why are we looking at the human part of Jesus? Because for Jesus to be our way shower, we have to relate to him as human and divine. And the more we can relate to him as human, the more we can follow him because we are human. Yet, we have a spark of that divinity. So, one of the things that I saw Jesus do in the Bible was he was changing the way people saw themselves. He changed the way sick people saw themselves, and they began to see themselves as whole and healthy. He changed the way people who saw themselves as what we might call sinners, which at Unity, what is the word sin? It's missing the mark. But more of the traditional way. He saw people who might have seen themselves as sinners, and then they now saw themselves as someone that was worthy of love and worthy of taking a new and fresh look at the way they see life and the way they move through life. And so the more I can see Jesus in his humanness doing these divine things, the more I can follow in his footsteps. And what Jesus did often was he served. He served others. He washed the feet of his disciples. So let me go back to what I was saying, that I believe you are here to express the divine that you are on this earthly plane. And one of the ways is by following our way shower, Jesus. The way Jesus went through life was serving. And each time we serve, we express the divine in us. Now here's the catch. I have a hard time with that word serve. I've always had a hard time with that. And why is that? I think it's because, have you ever known that person who seems to serve and serve to the detriment of themselves? That it comes off maybe a little bit as martyrdom? Or have you been around anybody who is serving, but there seems to be an ulterior motive to it? So I do have a hard time with that word serve. So what I would like you to do now is, instead of using the word serve, to use this word, to use the word calling. What is your calling? What is a calling? I'm taking the description of a calling from Jay Shetty's book, Think Like a Monk. Think Like a Monk by Jay Shetty. And your calling is where what you do brings you such deep gladness and the world's hunger meets. Your calling is what you do brings you such deep gladness and the world's hunger meets. And let me rephrase that. Your calling is when you do what you love most and others love what you're doing. It's pretty simple at that. Your calling is when you do something and you love doing it and others love you doing it. So if you enjoy eating, if you enjoy golfing every single day, but nobody really cares about your golfing, I would call that a hobby. Now, if you are golfing and somehow you take that love of golfing and then allow it somehow to serve others' experiences in this plane, then that could be your calling. Because again, each of us has a special reason to be here, and that is to show up as the divine spark that you are. Our calling is to be a light in the world. Our calling is to share our love, our talents with others. And I see many of you do that now. Many of you know your calling. You found it, and you take it out into the world. In small ways, it might be how we bring people together. I know I've seen Marla and Linda and Chris just bring a spiritual community together. They brought lots of other communities together to have us learn and grow together. I have seen all of you, Unity Bay Area Board, raise your hand. Yes, I have seen you take your individual talents and grow this community, helping build classes, helping inspire, helping make a difference in the community. So it's your unique talents that you enjoy doing. I have seen prayer teams, this prayer team, and other prayer teams make a difference to the energy in a community. Yet, sometimes we're stopped by our calling, aren't we? Yeah. And how do we get stopped? I think it's because of collective consciousness. And the area that I probably am most affected by with collective consciousness is in the area of aging. Because collective consciousness, the media tells us, oh, at a certain age, you may not want to exercise. You may not want to have sex. You are going to lose your memory. Whatever. We don't have to listen to collective consciousness, do we? No. So, we have a lot of wisdom in this room. We have a lot of wisdom in this room, i.e., we're a little bit older, okay? And we can do two things now. We can allow collective consciousness to tell us how we should be, or we can be like the great leaders of the world, or the small leaders of the world, or the people that have changed lives one life at a time. We can be those people. We can be as with the mindset of Robert Kennedy, who said, there are those that look at things and ask why. And I dream of things and ask, why not? So what is your dream to bring more peace? What is your dream to bring more joy? What is your dream to bring more love to another person, a group? What is your dream? Because that's what Jesus did. He went out and he constantly was showing he loved people. He loved people. Your calling might be bringing food to people because you enjoy cooking. Your calling might be growing that food because you enjoy gardening. Your calling might be helping your animal friends and those animals that don't have any friends. Your calling might be to build community. I want to tell you about someone I just met. I was very, very, very impressed with this gentleman. So I can't remember if he was in his early or his late 90s. And I met him in a small room, and he's sitting at his desk, and there's a lot of stuff on his desk. And his whole entire room is probably the size of some living rooms. Pretty small. He was in an assisted living. And he had on there a picture of his wife. His wife was deceased. And so he started telling me what a wonderful wife she was. What a wonderful wife she was. And what a firecracker she was also. Then there was another picture of a gentleman there, and he was an Hispanic man. This man was Caucasian, and he was Hispanic, so I knew it wasn't, I sort of assumed it wasn't a relative. And he started, so I asked him about the gentleman, and he's like, that is my best friend. My best friend. We have been best friends for 50-some years, and he has passed away, but yeah, he's always been my best friend. And so I just, asking, well, how did you guys, was it high school or, well, if he's 90, it wasn't high school, but anyway, I asked how they got to know each other. And he said, oh, I met him when I was helping with the homeless. So 50 years back, he had been helping with the homeless. And I thought, oh, well, that's great. And I asked him, why did you like to help with the homeless? And he said he started out just because he felt like he needed to help serve. But then he continued on because he met such interesting people. And he could come without any sense of judgment around them. They just became friends. And he became friends with other individuals, but this was his best friend who ended up living with him. And so they became very, very, very close. And so what does John do now? You know, he's early or late 90s, one of those. John still works with the homeless. John goes out every Wednesday and in his small way helps serve the homeless. But what is also interesting is John does another thing with the homeless. On his desk, on his wall above him, he has little ribbons and a little frame of an award he won. And that award is while he was playing chess. He played chess in high school, went on to continue that. And so every Wednesday, after John goes and helps feed the homeless, what does John do? He plays chess with the homeless. He loves it. They love it. That is his calling. And what his calling has done for me is to inspire me. Inspire me that when I show up and I am doing what I love to do, and I am helping others because they love that what I'm doing, that is my calling. So today and tomorrow and the next day, if you don't have a calling, I ask you to go find that calling. What do you enjoy doing? And how can you share that gift and talent with others? How can you serve? Because this spiritual practice will show the divine that you are, and you will see the divine in others. And so no matter how young you are, and especially how old you are, it is never too late. Find what you love to do. Go out, serve. This life is not a dress rehearsal. And so, as Nike says, just go out and do it. And so it is. Amen.